That stuff is delicious. You ever tried it? It's called water. It's great when you feel like I do right now. It is Saturday, October 4th at 9:52 p.m. Combination of hay fever and just general worn out voice from yelling at officials has me sounding like this. So I apologize to all you guys for this sound you're hearing. But thanks for being here. Really mean it. It's a few hours after Purdue lost to Illinois 43-27. It's quite a few hours, actually. It was a noon kickoff, and Purdue played the worst single quarter we've seen them play, in my opinion, by a lot. And that quarter left a pall over many Purdue fans that made them think, wow, that looked a lot like last year. And I agree. That second quarter, and that's why I talked about that one ugly quarter, that second quarter was really, really comparable to a Walters type of effort. I'm going to dig in deeper about this in a second. This game still has me a little passionate. I had some of the embers stoked by watching the pressers here a minute ago, but I'll talk about it in a second. But first, before I do it, head over to homefieldapparel.com if you need a t-shirt, a sweatshirt, a hat. They got some really, really great stuff. If you haven't seen it yet, the Play Hard hat's one that you might want to get, because you're probably starting to, even the most diehard of football fans after today might be starting to think about basketball a little bit. That said, hold the phone. October is great in Indiana. It's a fantastic month, and enjoy it for what it is. That's my suggestion. Yeah, homefieldapparel.com, great place, great product, soft t-shirts. Not the one I'm wearing. I'm wearing a sarcastic shirt. But you should head over there. Head over there right after this stream. Also, you should do it when you're on campus. When you're at Ross-Ade, when you're at Mackey Arena, when you're visiting your kids, if they're there, or you're just going back to God's country because you want to be, you ought to cap off your visit like I did today, and like Anish did today, and like Jay Money did today. We all went to AJ's. That's what we did. My dad went there. My brother went there. My nephew went there. I mean, goodness gracious. It was filled with not only the aroma, the sense of slow cooked meats, but also there was a BS aura there, as the kids say. It's about a 7-minute walk from victory or a painful loss like today. Head towards the fire station, turn left. Blue lights are going to go in there. And again, I am never let down by the place. AJ's, go in there. The staff is amazing. I got to give Adam a big hug today. That's pretty great. That's what it's all about at the end of the day. Burgers, beef, beer, and at the bottom of your beer on game day, much proof, because many of the people I was enjoying my meal with today, my brother and my dad, both had pints. At the bottom of those pints, boiled sports magnets. I got to meet a couple people that I had, see, AJ's unites. Here's what it does. I'm at AJ's. I'm talking to my fellow BS buddies. And across the way, there's a guy named Brandon. I got to talk to Brandon and go from a virtual friendship. We had interacted a lot to 3 dimensions. We get to shake hands, talk a little bit about today's game. And also Adam and his son. That was awesome, because I got to meet one of the youngest BS listeners and watchers. And if you're listening or watching, I'm not going to say his name because he's a little guy and I didn't get permission, but it was really, really cool to do that. And AJ's made it happen. Burgers, beef, beer, eatajs.com, the whole thing. You got to go there. It's that simple. All right, so I've got a lot of thoughts on the game. I listened to the press conferences. It took me a long time to get to you guys, not because I was angry, but because I hung around campus and I went to get something to eat and enjoyed time with my family and saw my nephew and all the whole thing. My son he's at a retreat, so I didn't get to see him. Hopefully, if you're listening, LBD, if you're catching up on, he got to watch the game, I think, on his phone, so not the same experience as being in Ross-Ade. Let's start with Ross-Ade. First thing, a little bit of a letdown for me, Ross-Ade. Not as big of a crowd as we've had this season. A lot of orange in the crowd. I would say that was not my favorite thing to see and hear. Right away, I had an interaction with an Illinois fan that was unpleasant. Right away. He came in to the aisle late. They came to the game late. Comes in there during a play. I never like that. Just wait until the play's over. And I let him know I didn't like it. And he cursed at me, and I gave a little bit back. But Illinois fans, great, awesome. Thanks for the You come into our space and you act like that. And I was not acting non-hospitable, but whatever. Bad intro. So there's the thing that the Ross-Ade was not, I wouldn't call it as raucous as I wanted to see it. The students came in a little bit slower than usual. Maybe it's because it's a noon game. Maybe because some of the energy's been zapped. I don't know, whatever it was. But it got, in the first quarter, you could start feeling it getting lathered a little bit. It was getting fun. But pretty quickly, that second quarter spoiled it all. An awful quarter of football. Like I said, the final score is 43-27. But in that second quarter, Illinois won 27-7. One single quarter. Purdue was pretty much cooked at that point. Purdue scores 27 total points. Illinois scored 27 points in the second quarter. Not good. No bueno, as I say. And the defensive backfield, Purdue's defensive backfield was flat out atrocious during that second quarter. There's no other way to say it. Tony Grimes didn't play. He was injured on Wednesday, according to the post-game comments by Odom. Tony Grimes' absence hurt Purdue because he's a veteran. He's a guy who's been playing college football a long time. He's played a lot of different places. And he's gotten burnt a lot this season. If we're just going to be real honest, Grimes has gotten burnt a lot. So instead of Grimes being there getting burnt, you had different guys being burnt. But the method in which they got burnt was incredible. You had guys running into each other, busted coverages, huge chunk plays. That's tough stuff to watch. When you're watching a team that, I can tell you that post-game conference for Odom, if you haven't watched it, you should go watch it. He was breathing fire. He was angry. He's sick of talking about needing to be disciplined. He's sick of talking about needing to make plays, and he wants the team just to start doing it. He started off, he gave Purdue a lot of respect, saying he loves Purdue and he thinks it's a great place and the fans deserve better, and the game was awful. Everything from the way the game was played to the way the game was coached. Taking responsibility, a very, very good thing. Sounded very old school in the presser overall. When I mean old school in the best possible way, just saying, I'm just sick of talking about these mistakes. I want us to be better. And he included himself in that group, but he was right. He was right. It was a bad game for Purdue. So these chunk plays, the manner that they happened, it was like slow developing pain, right? You could see it coming. You'd see the Illinois player not make an amazing route, just take a route, and Purdue's DBs were nowhere, just nowhere to be found. It happened time and time again. So that's the thing. I'm going to start negative. I'm going to keep going negative. Okay, so that was bad. The next thing that's bad, you had 2 turnovers from one guy. Michael Jackson had 2 turnovers. One of them, some Purdue fans say he didn't fumble. From my vantage point, he looks like he fumbled. Looks like he caught the ball, took a couple steps. Ball was loose. He had it in one hand. Cover the damn ball when you're coming over the middle of the play. Real simple stuff. Like, that bothered me a lot. So I'd say it's a fumble. That's where I looked at it. I did not say that was the officials' fault. The officials were awful today too, but that was a bad play. Jackson also, I think, muffed a punt. Oh, yeah. Defense made a great stop. That's exactly what happened. He muffs a punt on, the 15, the 12, something like that, 15. And it was absolutely a backbreaker. Both of those turnovers were huge. One of them, it was probably the swing point of the second quarter because it was early. And the other one was when Purdue really was starting to figure some things out, it looked like, defensively. And then he makes that fumble and gives Illinois a super short field after stopping them. They were huge. And one thing that Odom talked about, let me hold the coach to his accountability that he's talking about, because he said, guys need to just execute. You can't talk about things. You got to do it. Put him on the bench. That's a senior. You make those type of mistakes. I'm not saying bench him for the rest of the season. I'm not saying damn him to hell. I'm saying when you do that, when you make plays like that, you should probably be held accountable. And I think everyone in the stadium would have said, yep, not today. That's not your day, Michael. Come back. Fight another battle later. He had a good day statistically. You look at the catches, the yardage. I think he led the team in yardage. I'll talk about that in a second. It doesn't matter when you make mistakes that big. And I know Purdue's wide receiver core is already a little bit beleaguered, right? They're not where they need to be. We still not up to 100%, although we did get to see Chauncey Magwood today, which is the first time this season, I believe. Haven't seen Morissette, I don't think, this season. I'm almost positive we haven't. And I still like to see him. But there's some good things that happen. I'm going to talk about those good things after I get out of the negatives. But the negatives were pretty big. I loved the tenor of the presser from both the players and the coaches. They all thought this game was one that Purdue is really punching up right now. They're not favored in games. We talked about this. They're not favored in games right now because they're not that good of a team. And so this was a chance to beat a team that was ranked and that talent-wise where you're like, okay, they're not way, way, way far ahead. Obviously, their systems are better. They have an identity that's clear. Purdue is still trying to figure out everything. But what an opportunity wasted, in my opinion. I don't think Illinois is a team that's going to the playoff when I watch them in person. I didn't think that on TV. I still don't think Altmaier is anything to write home about. I think Big Ten Network and other networks have made him into something he's not. He's a solid quarterback. He can extend plays. He's good with his feet. But I think I could have made those passes to around the Purdue lack of defensive backs. That coverage was a big deal. So when you're a team that struggles, you can't make a lot of mistakes, right? I think we can all agree with that. How about these? You have an offsides when you've got Illinois had a 4th and 3, and Purdue has a guy just blaze across the line of scrimmage, drawing offsides, first down. That's a huge offsides, a massive offsides. Odom talked about that specific play. So you have a major offsides, so that's a discipline deal. You have 2 turnovers, so 2 fumbles by one guy, both led to turnovers. He didn't recover either one. Dropped passes all day. And in the second half, drop passes by guys. I was so wrong about my prediction. I thought on my Handsome Hour that I didn't think Purdue would win. I thought they'd lose by 10. But I also thought it might be a day for Tuggle to break out. And instead, Tuggle dropped how many? 3 or 4 passes? So, that's drop passes. He wasn't the only one. But he's the one that I remember the most because I think he's got the biggest upside. And I think he's a very good player. You got to catch passes when both your hands get on it, even if it's a little behind. I think Ryan Brown wasn't as sharp as he's been. He had a good day, though, 30 of 50, 302 yards and a touchdown passing and a touchdown running. That's a pretty solid day. But his receivers did him no favors in the second half specifically. None. And that, I think that's one of those accountability things. The receivers have been good all season. We've sang their praises. So now it's time to say, hey, come on. Be better. And we got to see a new receiver. Can't remember his name right now. I'm going to talk about him in a second. He very impactful. Oh, Corey Smith from Brownsburg. So it took me a second. The Rolodex is flipping. Corey Smith from Brownsburg, 6'1", 185-pound receiver. Okay, there we go. I'm not reading that. The brain just turned on. Isn't it great how it works? Smith played great, and he had a big play that was one of Illinois'. So here's the thing. Purdue's defensive backfield would make a bad play, and Illinois would be like, yep, we'll match it. Illinois has some guys that are injured also in the defensive backfield. IU preyed on that a couple weeks ago versus Illinois. Purdue preyed on that on 1 or 2 plays. But on that one specific, Smith got loose down the right sideline. Easy touchdown, his first, I believe, as a Boilermaker. So that was good to see. And he looks like he's going to have big upside. He looked like he could be a really solid receiver. If Tuggle can get his stuff together, which he will, I'm positive he will. If Jackson can have a game where he's just, you can see he was rocked after he had the first fumble. And then he had a kickoff. They kept him back on kickoff. And he ran up and he dove to the ground. And on that play, Purdue got a hold on top of that. And speaking of that, another bad thing in the day, penalties. Purdue had 8 penalties. They're averaging 4 a game. They had 8 for 90 yards, I think. That's bad football. It's not 10 or 11 penalties like we were used to during the Brom era or the Walters teams that did that sometimes, but it's still bad. And they were at important times. Those were lousy penalties. And like I said, these blown coverages, that I'd put that in that mistakes area. And Crew Wakely was out with injury, and so was Tony Grimes. It made a difference. Having 2 veterans out, it made a difference. The young guys, maybe this is a baptism by fire, and maybe you look at it okay, this is a game you, if you're like me, you thought they were going to lose anyway. But the way they lost, the manner of losing, I think, bothered me a lot. Let's go to positives, shall we? Let me make sure I got all of them. Sorry. Okay, that's all my negatives. Good. Good. It's over. Okay. It's over. Now we can all smile. All right. Positives. Purdue forced 3 punts today. Why is that a big deal? Because they've only forced 2 on the season, I believe. I believe that's correct, right? Against the upper division teams. I think that's true. So that's a big deal. That's good. So forced 3 punts. That's a big positive. Okay. Didn't get a turnover, but Purdue established the run. That's a big deal. And it was 2 guys, right? You had both, Harris and Maccabee. Both looked really, really solid. Harris broke one off. I'll talk about those yardage here in a second. I already mentioned Brown, but I'll do it again. 30 of 50, 302 yards, touchdown rushing, touchdown passing. Correa had a great game, 15 tackles. Awesome. That's great. Correa is becoming, I think he's becoming, we're starting to see a guy that's pretty special. Wow, he's budding. And he handles his business too. Off the field, he's really, really tough not to like. He's got a seriousness about him that I really like. The team has a seriousness about him that I really like. When they lose, when they make mistakes, they're not jacking around, which I think that comes from the coaches. That's good. What's the other one? Oh, Powell, 14 tackles. He was all over the field. Great game. This is probably, as a team standpoint, a team stat that you got to like. Purdue had 2 sacks, 8 tackles for a loss versus a pretty good team. These are good things, right? Let's look at the stats real quick, and then I'll check out those of you that joined live. Appreciate you guys being here. Like I say, Purdue falls to 2-3 on the season. It's a game that you don't like the manner of losing. I think more than anything, losing is something. Sadly, in a rebuild year, and that's becoming apparent that's absolutely the best case scenario, is a year that you're like, okay, try to improve, get better every week, that sort of thing. But frustrating game. So let me look at these quarters. In the first quarter, Purdue looked pretty solid. They had 7 points, and Illinois had 0 to start. Really, really solid. And they forced Illinois to punt, I think, right away. Then they forced Illinois into a field goal, if I remember correctly, the second possession. And then the fumble happens, and Purdue's wheels fell off. In that second quarter, 27-7. I mean, third quarter, 13-7. These middle quarters have been death for Purdue. So Purdue gets outscored 40-14. I think that's right. Yeah, 40-14 in the second and third quarter. Is that good? I'm not a numbers guy. I draw for a living, but I don't think it's good. It's not good. Fourth quarter, Purdue wins 3-6. So middle quarters are damning them. Lack of consistency is damning them. This was the least disciplined game they've had. That hurts them really bad. Let's see. Antonio Harris, 4 carries, 69 yards. Very big carry. Obviously, he had a 41-yard carry. That was a big deal. Maccabee had some pretty nifty carries. He hurdled 2 guys during carries. He finishes the game with 11 carries, 58 yards, 5.3 yards a carry. Brown was pretty good, toting the ball, 9 carries, 22 yards. And I think he was sacked twice as well, just like Altmaier. Receiving, Michael Jackson, I told you, 14 receptions, 94 yards. That's really, really good. Really solid. But I'm telling you, that's to boot the ball, put it on the ground twice, and not have either of them stick with Purdue. Those are really costly mistakes. Corey Smith, like I said, he has 3 receptions, 83 yards. Big play capability there. 60 yards was his big touchdown down the right sideline. Nitro Tuggle only had 2 catches for 33 yards. After that, Chauncey Magwood gets his first catch of the season, I believe. 1 catch, 15 yards. Maccabee was pretty good out of the backfield. They put him in the slot a couple times, and he had 3 catches for 23 yards. Malachi Thomas, this was pretty interesting to me. He was pretty effective as a receiver. 2 receptions and 29 yards. And one of them was really, really good play on the left side of the field, if you remember it. Rico Carter had a catch, 9 yards. What else? Well, that's not right. There's a stat here on ESPN that is just wrong. So let's see. Anything else that's noteworthy? Like I said, the team sacks, tackles for a loss is a big deal. One thing I was impressed with, and maybe you guys weren't, but I was really impressed with, especially in the third and fourth quarter, Purdue's defensive line in the trenches had a toughness that I don't think we've seen this year. Granted, they were playing a team that maybe they had taken their foot off the gas a little bit, But D'Amico Kennedy specifically, and there's one other guy. Oh, Jamarion Harkless. Chops Harkless. Those two guys, they're big humans, but they played tough. They were good over the top of the ball. They were really active. They were disruptive. So that was really, really good. Purdue was disrupting Illinois' running game, which is good because remember in these games versus USC and Notre Dame both, it felt like they could do whatever they want whenever they wanted. In the first half, felt like Illinois' counter was killing Purdue. They had a trap that just killed Purdue over and over. So much space to run through. In the second half, they didn't have that. And I would say that came up front. Really, really good to see. Anybody else in here? CJ Madden had a really good play on pursuit down the side or down the line of scrimmage that I was really impressed with. Another guy that I thought, Alex Sanford. I think he played his best game at Purdue. You guys tell me I'm wrong if you'd like. But Miles Slusher and Taj Rael, both of them were pretty solid again. And they've been solid much of the season. I'm trying to think if anybody else deserves a shout out. Solid game, though, except for that second quarter. That's all I've got right now. Purdue, like I said, you can hear that I'm a little bit frustrated at this game because I thought there was a shot. So next you go to Minnesota. It's an evening game, 7:30 game. That's a place that I'd like to see a game, if I'm real honest. It looks like a nice stadium. And this time of year would be better. If you didn't know this is wild. Well, we enjoyed 88-degree temperatures, 87-degree temperatures, whatever they were during the game. It was hot for a early October game. Out in Wyoming, there's a snow game this evening. So it's pretty crazy. The differences of weather we're having in America, just because that's what we live in. Well, I'm not going to quote the text thread from earlier, but it's a large nation. I'll do that. I'm going to avoid the stupidity we had on this text thread individually. Let's see. And then, you got at Minnesota, at Northwestern versus Rutgers for homecoming. These next few games are probably pretty important for Purdue to feel better about themselves. There's no doubt about that, and I think they can. But today was frustrating, and I agree with Odom's assessment. I agree with the players' assessment. And if I'm too negative, I apologize to you guys, but that's what I'm feeling. And I let it cool for a while, right? I had a lot of time before I got on here. Adam P. is here. He's the number one king. Hello, and hola to you. John Roberts says, hello. Daniel Reese says, how is it that our defense has gotten worse over the years with two defensive head coaches? Also, I was hopeful from the first two games that we had cleaned up the penalties. Okay, so two different things. First off, the penalties. Let's see if this wasn't an anomaly. Let's do that first. They were frustrating. The penalties were frustrating. The second part, say our defense has gotten worse. This defense is better than last year's defense. This team has a stronger will than last year's team. And there are a couple guys that cross over into this season from last year. But what I mean is if last year's team got 27 points scored on them in a quarter, they were toast. You wouldn't have seen a fight from them in the second half. The team was fighting in the second half. So that was good to see. Not enough to make it a real legit game, but it felt like it was flirting, right? It got down to 13 points. And it felt like, maybe one or two things happened and it could be slightly different. That last year's team, though, the scheme, and that's the lesson you can learn from last year's team if you don't know a lot about football, okay? A lot of Purdue's talent on defense is gone. They're at other schools, and they're making a lot of impact. They're making a lot of impact, a lot of those guys. And the scheme was so bad for getting guys in position to succeed that they looked awful game in, game out, right? You had a guy who was a good defensive coordinator, had two good stops at defensive coordinator, plays head coach, well, kind of. Comes to Purdue, is Purdue's head coach, and Purdue has a defense that looks hapless because he was unwilling to get out of that awful scheme for the personnel. It did not work with Purdue's personnel. So is Purdue's defense worse than last year? I don't think so. But that scheme was horrendous. I do think that talent level for that starting 11 on defense was higher than this year's. That said, there are some glimmers of light, and I talked about that. Some of the things they were doing in the trenches at the end of the game look good. Some of the things you saw from the defensive ends and the outside linebackers are really good. Correa looks really, really good. The defensive backs, though, gracious. Gosh, they've got to clean a lot up. And this is one thing I had in my notes I didn't talk about, but you're coming off a bye week, and I'd almost call it a curse of the bye week. Because last year when Purdue would come off a bye week, I mean, they looked bad much of the season, but they'd come off a bye week and they play their worst football. If I remember correctly, they played Wisconsin last year off the bye week. I think they did. So you come off a bye week, which you have all this time to prepare, and that's the turd that you lay. That's pretty lousy. Yeah. Chunk plays are a problem for this team. Let's be real honest. You have USC, Notre Dame, and Illinois, all obvious. Chunk plays are a problem because of defensive back play. We can be real frank. Sam Hageman, let's go with that. Number 2 King says, second quarter was a literal Three Stooges episode. Yes, it was. Our defenders were colliding with each other more than Illinois ball carriers. Yes. And after that one play, they were yelling at each other too. And you like passion, but you're like, well, hopefully you guys can clean this up. But do you have guys playing who maybe didn't know they were going to play? I don't know. And I don't want to. Here's the thing. I am really torn right now. I'm going to be really honest about a philosophical battle, or maybe an internal battle that I'm having about how to handle these things. Obviously, I told you that Michael Jackson made mistakes that were, I think he should be benched. He should have been benched for that game, the remainder of that game. He's an older player. These guys are getting paid. This is professional football, right? So that's the one side. On the other side, I'm like, I still like these guys. I like Michael Jackson. I think he's really good for the team. Seems like a decent teammate. I don't know much about him other than that. So I'm going to handle it somewhat, try to be somewhat better to the younger guys, especially because a lot of these guys are figuring things out. Even Michael Jackson, it's first year at Purdue, first year with this coaching staff, first year with this system. All that's true, but that you got to cover the ball up with 2 hands. Have to. He's a better player than that. That's the thing. I think you expect big things from a couple guys, not a lot of guys on the field on both sides of the ball, right? A couple guys. And so when it doesn't happen, you're like, let's improve. And that's what Odom had. He wanted enough to talk. He just wants to see things improve. Adam P said forced a punt at least. They forced 3. So, and the punter on Illinois, I don't know if you noticed that, is Purdue's old punter. So, and Purdue's current punter was better. He bested him by 3 yards a punt. Let's see. Boiler Seifried, I don't know how I'm pronouncing it, says penalties are becoming a problem. What's happening is it playing tougher opponents. We could have been in this game. Yeah, so I think they had 6 or 7. They have 6 or 7 versus Notre Dame. Does that sound right? I think that's right. Maybe 6. Today was more of a problem than any other game in those penalties. But yes, I think when you're out of position, you're going to make more mistakes. When you're outmanned and outgunned, you're going to make more mistakes. And the bigger one, my dad and I talked about this on the way home. The aggressor gets a better whistle generally. The team that is enforcing their will, the team that is in position to make plays, they're going to get a better whistle. It's just fact of the game. Now, if you're just like extremely undisciplined, like some of Jeff Brom's team, where you're like, okay, really exciting, there's some athleticism, their guys are flying around the field, but they're doing stupid things because they play with so much emotion. Yeah, that's going to happen. But yeah, I think as you play better teams, you're going to be prone to making more mistakes and getting more penalties. That said, some of the penalties, especially early, they were just boneheaded. No one need to have them. So we'll see if it becomes a problem. Second quarter was horrible, though. That second quarter, you remove that second quarter and just make it a 14-point quarter, the game feels drastically different. And Purdue had 14 points, and I think they were in a good place. 14 points, like 80 yards rushing, and I want to say 170 yards passing, 165 yards passing at the half. And they were getting drubbed still. And that just says a lot about the way the defense played in that quarter. So Dana Pritchett kind of comes with me on that one. Says DBs are playing terribly and getting worse. They did. You got to keep in mind, they lost 2 very veteran players for this week. And I don't know when those guys are going to be back. But those are 2 of the guys that I thought were going to be great this year. Not good and great. So I'm putting that back on myself and eating a bit of crow, because I thought Tony Grimes and Crew Wakely were guys that were going to make so much noise that other teams were going to be like, okay, we got to avoid trying to pass in their zone. I thought Wakely was going to be a hard hitter, which I still think he is. And I thought Grimes was going to be a bit of a hawk who was in the pockets of wide receivers. Instead, has not gone that way. But they were both out, and they are both veterans, and you need veterans to play when you have a team that is trying to rebuild, unquestionably. Boiler Seafried says, still, we're playing so much better than last season. I completely agree. Marshall Briggs says, evening Dowd. Marshall and I were talking back and forth via Twitter. I had a lot of thoughts earlier today. Ben Kolazinski, who I got to see at halftime, good to see you, Ben, says, backbreaker, fumble, punt return after that stop, brutal. Air left the stadium. Yeah, and we both talked. Also love you, B-Dad. You too, Ben. Love you too, brother. Great seeing you today. So, yeah, it did let a lot of the air out of the stadium, didn't it? And it let a lot of the energy out. And we talked, and we were kind of filled with angst, if you will, at that point. You'd watch Purdue give up the dumb long drives. There was a time in that second quarter where it felt like Purdue can't do anything to stop Illinois, right? And so Illinois drives right down the field after Purdue scores to get another 7 points right at the end. Was it 27 points in the first half, right? And yeah, that was a killer. It's an absolute killer. So you're right. Boilers 012 says, unfortunately, our football Boilers are still a work in progress. Fair, to say the least, but still a great day in the sun with family and friends. All about perspective. Word, man, that's good stuff. I agree with that. And yeah, October in Indiana is the greatest month. I mean, I love it. I love it. I love it because of football season. I love football season. What a catch. What a pass. Sorry, I'm watching Mississippi State and is that Texas A&M? I don't know. Great pass and catch. But no, October is incredible. And the more October in Indiana I can get, the more chance to watch football on a sunny, crisp afternoon in Indiana. Today was not crisp, though. It was warm and it was pretty, but it was warm. I got a little bit sunburnt on different parts, but that's like summertime. Look at that. I look down ahead. Anisha's on here. That's great. Let's see. First, the MJ3 is the only one. Didn't let the 10-yard sight go through his fingers. I don't know what that. I can't read that real well, so I'm not gonna. Sam, I apologize. I can't really. It's the way I'm reading it. So, Andy in Colorado says it felt like they let the first fumble derail everything. It did feel like that. It felt like that was like a wrinkle in time or a part where you're like, okay, that's the end of the game. Everything changed after that fumble. If you watch the replay, which I did a couple times, I watched it on small screen and bigger screen. I think Jackson knew he fumbled it. You look at the look on his face, like he knows. And I feel awful for those guys. You know, like everybody sees him, but at the same time, I'd like to see improvement. And he was not playing the same aggression after that, in my opinion. So anyway, Anish says Purdue Grandma. That's me. I'm Purdue Grandma. So good to see you, sir. Good to see you in person too. Great to see you last 2 days. Nate Dolan says next two games against Minnesota and Northwestern will give us a real measure of progress. It's a good point. I think so. That's a good point. It's a good statement. But at the same time, I'd say we've already had some measures of progress that I think are legit. Meaning you didn't have to go very far to progress. You didn't have to go very far to get better. But yes, peer programs right now, I hate that. I hate that there's so few of them. UCLA today beat Penn State. It's one of the biggest upsets in the last couple of years with the how they were. I think they were 27-point underdogs, and hundreds of UCLA fans came into the Rose Bowl for that game versus Penn State. But UCLA is a cellar dweller, and I think we're in the second week of their interim coach, what's his name, Neuheisel's son, and they beat Penn State, and they were up by a lot. They were beating them by a drum early. Some really interesting games in the Big Ten. We'll talk about this on Monday at the Handsome Hour at 9. But Washington was toast. Maryland had them. They were down 20-0. It was 20-10, and all of a sudden Washington's all the way back in the game, and they win. There were some really, really interesting games. Cincy beating Iowa State was interesting as well. But some very interesting football. It was a good football Saturday. It's still not done yet, although these games aren't quite as entertaining, if you ask me. Yeah, they're not that great. But Yeah, some good stuff. Maybe I'm missing some. I only have 4 on right now, but yeah, good football to still watch. Ben says, regardless, this team is miles ahead of the last couple seasons. I agree. Still have a mile or 2 to go in order to threaten Big Ten teams. That's a good statement. Very, very good. Brock Stepler, saw Brock today, says, I'm sad, but boiler up. I'm going to sneeze. Didn't come. That's great. Did not sneeze. Feels awesome. Hay fever or whatever this is has been brutal to me today. Sam Hageman says, Mock needs more touches. I agree. He had a quarter where he didn't get the ball at all. I think they're just trying to keep him fresh. They wanted to keep him fresh so he'd be ready at the end of the game. Game got out of hand during that second quarter. Says Branch needs more targets. I agree. Asking Brown to carry us like Drew with 50 passing attempts constantly. Stopping the clock doesn't seem like winning football with mid talent. Yeah, so the problem with what you're saying is, and I agree, is like you say, well, Branch needs more touches, and I said Tuggle needs more touches. And Tuggle, clearly the coach says try to get to him in the second half because they didn't, I swear they didn't target him in the first half. So Tuggle gets all these passes his direction and drops them. They weren't the best passes, most of them. He had one of them that was really good, that's easy catch. Others were a little more difficult, but I think solid receivers, not great receivers, should make those catches. I think he's that good of a receiver. You can just say, yeah, make that catch. But he dropped a lot of balls. And so that's the problem, right? So you say, okay, there's only so many plays, especially when you're not chugging along. The offense got into decent rhythm at times, but couldn't keep it. So that's a little frustrating. Let's see. Nate Dolan says, Gopher Stadium, the bank, is a nice stadium. Great view of downtown Minneapolis. Yeah, it looks great. And it's intimate. It's a smaller place. It's a modern stadium. Yeah, it looks like a good place. I think I'd like to go to a game eventually, but it's a long trip. It's probably a flight. Ron Gable, my buddy, who is my Ross-Ade neighbor, just to show behind the curtain, says 2 possible wins in the next 3 weeks. I agree. So you've got Purdue they really need to win. They really need to win both of them, being real honest. But let's get one of 2. Let's get one of 2 and put together one of these games. That's the thing I would love to see. We've seen now parts of games being put together, meaning, okay, Brown plays a questionable rough game versus USC, makes some bonehead decisions. And the next game he plays really well, puts those things behind him and improves. You say, okay, Purdue can't stop the run, and then after a couple efforts where they couldn't stop the run, USC and Notre Dame, they can stop the run. We still haven't seen the defensive backfield be able to do that. But if you can say, stop the run, get to the quarterback a little bit, it makes the job a lot easier on the defensive backs if you're rattling his cage a little bit. And they did it today. So if they can put together a complete game, if they can put together a game where you're like playing really solid and not making all those mistakes that I talked about earlier, maybe you can find a team on its heels. I am convinced of a couple things. One, I still think it's a 4-win team, 4 or 5, best case scenario, but 4. Let's say it's a 4-win team. And I think one of those wins will be one of those games where it clicks. I would love to see win number 5, if it's a 5-win team, be against a team like Michigan. Because I think that game, that number 1, it's on the road, right? They play Michigan at Michigan, I believe. Is that right? I think that's true. Ohio State's going to be a tough nut because literally that's a beast of a team. IU looks incredible, and they look like strength versus weakness. Their receivers are awesome. Their quarterback's very good, and Purdue's DBs are struggling mightily. So, yeah, I think there aren't a ton of opportunities ahead. But if one of those games could click, or if everything work, and you steal one, like what we saw UCLA doing with Penn State, right? It happens about once a week. You'll see a team upset a team, where you're like, wow, okay, they put it together. Is UCLA now a proven product? No, they put it together for a game. So I think Purdue can do that. I have faith in this team that they can do that. Now, will it be versus one of these lesser opponents and they roll one of them? Sure, it could be. But yeah, I think they can do it. John Timmons says we're ass, and I don't. You and I know. Here's the thing: I'm not a we guy. I don't know if you have heard me say this before. I'm not a we guy. I'm a we man because I'm not tall. But I'm not a we guy, meaning I don't refer to Purdue as we because I don't think it's right for me to do that. Granted, I am an alum. I am a season ticket holder, so you could say that'd be fair. That'd be a reason to say we, but I don't do that. I say my Boilers, our, that sort of thing, because I'm part of the family, but I'm not part of the team. I don't think that's fair for me to get in that. So I can't jump on that. But I could say, sure, I too am a flawed human. How about that, John? We'll meet there. Marshall Briggs says, despite the football program rebuilding, it's nice that people are now saying, yeah, but Purdue is legit with basketball, cup half full. Yeah, I kind of hate that talk. I'm nothing against you, okay? I just hate it because I remember hearing fans of other schools, let's just say, wait till basketball. I hate that. I don't want to do that. I want to move on from that. I think football's fun. Even in a bad season, I still want to see this team win. And I still think they're capable of winning. And I'm not ready for it. But I do understand that. And the basketball team was announced in Ross-Ade. If you were there, you got to see that. The big takeaway is Daniel Jacobson is ridiculously tall. Also, the human part of the thing when you're on campus, which is cool. I saw TKR getting into his car today. I can tell you what it was, but I'm not going to do that to him. Also tall in person and very lean. But yeah, saw TKR today. Saw those guys, saw all the basketball team on the field. Jacobson is so stinking tall. Around tall men, because Burgess is a giant, okay? And Jacobson is so much taller than Burgess. It's wild. And then on the other side, Braden Smith is not very tall. And I've heard from an account of different people meeting him saying he's a great guy. Not a big dude. He's a great athlete. That's one thing I think. And I think people sleep on Smith's athleticism too often. Maybe we don't talk about that very often, how athletic that guy is. Because everybody says Purdue's not an athletic basketball team. If we're looking ahead, I think they're sneaky athletic. I think Harris is a good athlete. I think Cox is a really good athlete. I think Smith is a really good athlete, just to start. Okay. And there are guys from there. For instance, Daniel Jacobson for a big moves really well. Really good feet, really good hands. That's athleticism. Okay. So we can go from there. TKR is an incredibly strong athlete. He's not a quick guy off the floor, really. You know, like you think of the stereotypical good athlete basketball player. But anyway, Jack Leonard 22 says I'm his favorite wee guy. I appreciate that. And it just means a lot coming from you. Thank you very much. And I think my mom says the same thing. Ron Gable says Purdue volleyball leading ranked USC 1-0 up in the second set. Yeah, Coach Sondel is legit. That dude is a witch, like the best type of witch. I don't mean he's literally a witch. I don't think he's a witch. In fact, I think he's a believer, like I am, in God, in Christ. But the things he can do are magical. That's my point. He is he is a very good coach. Many of you, and I mean you, many of you who listen here, many of you who follow us on Twitter, really left Purdue's volleyball team for dead after the mass exoduses last year. Was it Nebraska? Pretty much bought multiple Purdue players. They left Purdue. And that stunk. It was awful. It stings if you're a fan of Purdue volleyball like Ron is. But Coach Sondel does his thing, and it's good to see. They've had some pretty great wins already, and they're going to keep winning. So it's good to see. And good to see you tonight. Purdue is now 2-3, sadly. Next up, I don't want to say winnable game because I'm not Scott Frost. I'm not going to do that. But a game that we should see Purdue compete. And that's one thing Odom really wants to see is, not only compete, finish the damn thing, go get that dub. So we'll talk to you Monday at 9 p.m. at the Handsome Hour. Hope you're here live. And if you're not here live, hope you're here on delay. It should be good. Marshall Briggs says projection on how Purdue finished October. I'll do this before I leave. Let's see. What would that be? 1, 2, 3, 4. What that would be, there's 4 games here. And what I want to say is probably not a wise thing to say because it's like head versus heart. My heart wants to say they're going to go 3-1. It's crazy talk. So I'm going to say they're going to go 2-2. I think that's still pretty ballsy, but I'm going to say they're going to go 2-2. All right, sure. What am I out by saying that? I think they're going to go 2-2. I think they're going to rebound from what we saw today. I don't know what you think, Marshall. That's just my feeling. A lot of Purdue fans are, how can I say this constructively? Weak. because they're jumping off already. Give me a break. I mean, like, I don't mean, obviously this is entertainment, but if you're there, if you're a ticket holder, or if you're somebody here that you care enough that you come to these live, don't jump off. Don't jump off. What's the point of that? You're as bad as a reversible jacket person if you're doing that. I mean that. Don't jump off. Don't jump off. I think that's garbage. I think it's too soon to give up on a team and to think that they're already toast. I don't think they're toast at all. And maybe I've got gold colored glasses on, but I don't think they're toast. I think they're what I thought they'd be this year. And today though was a disappointing game because of that second quarter. We don't need to paint with a super broad brush. So, okay. Marshall has them also at 2-2 in the month of October. So I think that would be solid. If they go 2-2, they are at 4 wins. Exactly what I thought they'd have this season and exactly the way the season I thought it would go. The hard thing at that point is then it gets hard. Let me just look at that real quickly. The schedule gets difficult. So then you got that at Michigan game. Michigan has a lot to prove for me as a person just watching Michigan's product. I don't think they're that good of a team. Okay. They're 20th ranked right now. I'm not impressed. So that's a team that I'm like, okay, hey, can you beat Michigan at Michigan? Well, guess what? No Purdue teams beat Michigan at Michigan. It's just, I mean, what's the last time they won at Michigan? Did they beat them one time with Rodriguez at Michigan? I don't think so. I don't think they did. I might be wrong, but I don't think they did. Purdue just doesn't win at the Big House. Could this team do that? Why not? Let's dream a little bit. Sure. Are they going to beat Ohio State? No. They're not going to beat Ohio State. They're not going to beat Ohio State. I don't see Ryan Kerrigan walking through that door. I don't see Rondell Moore walking through that door. You have to have athletes. You have to have dudes, right, to beat Ohio State. Then they go to Washington. So they go to Seattle. Can they beat Washington? There's cracks in that armor. I think they could beat Washington. Can they beat IU? I don't think so. So there you go. So I'm taking you on a roller coaster ride. Now, what is more accurate or what is more predictable? What is actually going to happen in November at Michigan versus Ohio State, at Washington versus IU? That's what I'm saying, man. If you just look at logic, you look at what Vegas thinks right now. I'm sure that you could. I don't bet on sports, but I can tell you that's money that's on the line, and I guarantee you nobody thinks Purdue's going to win any of those games. So, yeah. So that's about it. Okay, good talk, and guys. Marshall kind of lured me into an extra long sign off, but that's easy to do. 47 minutes in, post game. That's okay. That's about average. Not bad. Hope to see you Monday, 9 p.m. at the Handsome Hour with my two buddies. We'll see you. Hammer down. Talk to you soon. God bless.